All right, so again, we like to consider ourselves experts. We're endorsed by the AVMA. Over the last 24 months, we've loaned over $30 million to veterinarians in New England alone. So we, like I said, there's the whole banking world out there, but our specialty is really the financing. We'd love you to use all the rest of the products, but that's not really our concern. We want to make sure that you get a loan that works for your business. Where we make a good partner, hospital transitions. There's a huge gap in the market between sellers who don't think they have anyone to sell to and buyers who don't think they can afford a practice. We offer conventional financing for associates looking to buy a hospital from a large practice. And we do, like we just helped a doctor in New Hampshire buy a $1.8 million hospital. We do large loans for individual buyers. So that's a void we think we fill well, that if your legacy isn't to go to VCA or they're not the best fit for selling your hospital, we can help finance an associate, so you can get, if you're selling your practice for $1 million, maybe you can get $900,000 or the whole $1 million when you retire in cash from us, and they can pay us back instead of you taking on the risk. The other side is the capital reinvest. We're just printing money. If we're reinvesting in hospitals, whether it's equipment, small renovations, we have a lot of, again, unique programs that are typically easier than the local bank process. If you're looking to buy some equipment, do some renovation, maybe some marketing, we can kind of lump it all into one loan and do it to the business. So it's much easier to do than taking out a real estate loan and a line of credit and taking a mortgage on your house and some of those different things. So it's a very clean loan program. We also help with all the typical stuff you'd expect as well, refinancing, commercial real estate, and things of that nature. But I'd say these are the two that we're really, really different from the local bank, and so it's usually a program that's different from what you've heard. So that's enough about us. If you have questions or a certain scenario, certainly just let me know, and I'd be happy to talk about what we could do or how we might be able to help. And if I don't have an answer, hopefully I can point you in the direction of someone who will. So all right, so I wanted to do, and we'll move kind of quickly, I wanted to do an exercise that pertains to what you're looking at, which is, is there an opportunity to reinvest to potentially grow revenues? Because that's the thing, right? Everybody, we talk about growth strategies, and IDEX talks about equipment, and MWI talks about this, and it's how do you know if you're ready, or how do you know if there's even an opportunity, right? Like, should I be thinking about practice growers, or should I be thinking about expanding my footprint? And the one metric we've used, and I think others in the industry use as well, is taking the total sales of your practice, so the top line of your tax returns, gross sales, gross revenues, whatever you want to call it, and dividing that by the square footage of your hospital. So if you have, and I should be better in math as a banker, but if you have a 2,000 square foot facility and you're doing $1 million in revenue, it's at $500 a square foot, right? So the metric we see when we're doing underwriting, we look at practices, is if you're over $350 a square foot, expanding should make sense. If you're under, then maybe it's not, don't necessarily need to expand. There should be some other reason. If you're over $500 a square foot, we found that you're probably losing money due to some inefficiencies in the small space, because maybe you're scheduled out for wellness visits. Maybe you have your surgery suite is the same as your x-ray room or something to that extent, so you don't have the capability to separate some of those procedures or wellness visits. Maybe you just have one exam room, whatever it may be. So if everybody, I don't know if everybody knows their gross sales from last year, ballpark, but if you want to do this calculation real quick, it can give you a pulse. And then we can talk about some of the...
I had a question. How do you figure out the square foot? Is that just the usable space of exam rooms, or is it storage and kennels and?
We use the whole clinic.
Clinic.
Yeah, because inventory space could be an exam room, right? If you had more room. We've had doctors that they complain, it's like, I have this one room that's just dog food and inventory that I need another exam room, but I don't have anywhere to put this. So we look at
a closet or something that you really couldn't necessarily set all including square footage of how much you should be producing.
I would say usable square footage. If there's a room that you absolutely can't even go into, I wouldn't consider that square footage, because that would be considered you know, if you renovated it, it could add to the total. So I would say anything you can use, but inventory counts as using that space, if that makes sense. All right, so if you get that number, you can get a pulse. All right, if I'm over 350, and maybe you felt some pains, and you thought about maybe you don't know whether you want to expand, but you're, I guess, feeling those pains is accurate. You know, like you're not out of your mind for thinking you need to expand. If you're up on the higher end, then maybe it's, you know, you're probably losing some opportunities there. If you're below that, then it's like, okay, what are some ideas we can do to grow revenues inside the square footage we have now? Maybe it's moving a wall here or there, or maybe it's looking at some practice growers to try and expand. So as we go through this, don't worry about the cost yet. Think about what will grow your hospital revenue and profits. So if it's equipment, adding an exam room, whatever it may be, don't worry about the cost yet. Let's talk about what's going to impact your bottom line, and then we'll kind of reverse engineer it to see if it's feasible or to give you an idea of what it would cost to make that happen, if that makes sense. All right? So no budgets allowed as a banker. So the first thing we talk about is hospital layout. Do you have multi-use rooms that are causing bottlenecks? So that's where, you know, do you only have one exam room? Are you, is treatment and surgery the same area? So that's one thing you want to think about. Think about the perception of your facility. If you want to portray a high standard of care, do people get that feel when they walk in the front door? You know, I know a lot of doctors go in the back entrance and they never come in the front door. And so they don't understand what it's like to wait in their own waiting room, or what it smells like, or what they hear, or what's going on in the back. So being aware of some of those, I guess, experiences that the client goes through when they're not in the exam room with the doctor. And the other things to look at is how far out are you scheduling appointments. This goes back to the bottlenecking, but do you need more? You know, do you need more exam rooms? If you're going to hire another veterinarian, how would that impact things? The equipment check is outdated equipment holding you back. What practice growers like dental and therapy lasers help you grow your revenues? Is your practice management, so help you manage your practice, or just print invoices? So if you have on your sheet, if you have any things that are want items in your head, if you're like, man, this would really create an efficiency if we could get X, or you know what, we don't really have a practice management software. We've been using the old one for 20 years. If we could find one that could, you know, create email reminders and provide us more useful information and help us recall our patients better and our, you know, recall client visits, add that to the wish list. And obviously there's a cost that goes with that because you have to set up terminals and all the workstations and things like that. But I would say if you're looking at CR or DR, it's somewhere between 35 and 65,000 is typically what we see, and that's sometimes usually without a table. It varies depending on if you're going Sound IDEX or like a Fuji or a name brand that's kind of, or a kind of off-label brand. The therapy lasers are about 21,000 is what we've seen for like the companion. K lasers are a little bit less. Practice management software ranges depending on the number of workstations you want to set up, but anywhere from 15 to 30,000 depending on how many workstations you need and the hardware as well as the software. Dental, I'm not as familiar with those. I know there's a little bit more, but start to make a little tick list of what it could be. So marketing. Too often, you know, our marketing habits are similar to the cat right now. If that was on like a bank presentation, I'd probably get fired. But so, you know, one thing that people always perceive is that marketing and website and all that is always a cash expense. But if you're doing a lot of reinvesting at once, it may make sense. If you're doing a large overhaul, branding, new logo, you know, postcards, website, if you're, you know, signage outside your building, if you're doing a big overhaul of your brand and marketing strategy, it may make sense to put it in a loan that you can pay off earlier, but you don't necessarily have to pay that out of cash. I think what puts a lot of these reinvestments on hold is that you think, man, I got to do a 5-year equipment loan, I got to spend 15 grand cash to get a website up and running, and then practice management software is going to be another 30 grand, whatever it may be. So what we're aiming to do is to consolidate a lot of the expenses into one loan to see if you can make it cash flow affordable. So again, marketing, just I think the website, it's more than having a presence, but do you have some avenue to, like I said, I know it's a hot topic with online ordering, but converting clients into pay, or converting website visitors into clients? Is there an avenue for them to schedule an appointment, contact? Is that, always like, it's sometimes so hard to find a link to contact the clinic on a website. Like, why isn't that one of the first things is, hey, book an appointment? It should be a button that should be on the front homepage. Book an appointment now. That they can go and, even if it's something as crude as sending an email to your office manager to call them to set up the appointment, give them that opportunity to do it, So that's on the marketing side as well. Okay. So the other way we want to evaluate this is to think cash flow first. Too often, we think as business debt as a home mortgage, right? Your home mortgage, everybody wants to pay it off as quickly as possible because you're building equity. And you're building towards eventually being able to sell it or borrow against it, but everybody just wants to get rid of their mortgage. With a business, obviously the end line is to sell it, but you need to get a return on your investment as well. So you look at Clinic A profits at $10,000 a month and pays $1,000 a month in loans for a net profit of $9,000. Clinic B profits at $15,000 a month and pays $4,000 a month in loans for a net profit of $11,000. So that's where it's like making sure the reinvestments are going to grow revenues and are geared towards profit. Because if you're 2,000, you may have to spend money, spend money to make money. It's just making sure you do it in a way that's, cash flows and works well. Okay, so again, spending money, not all debt is bad if it's used correctly for the business. The owner of Clinic B that expanded and reinvested has an additional $120,000 in the bank after 5 years compared to Clinic A. You can always pay your debt down quicker, but you want to get, like I said, the return on the investment of your hospital. So making sure that it cash flows and structuring the debt you borrow in a way that you can pay yourself first and then pay down the debt, second. Always consult with your CPA, but you became an owner to make money above and beyond what you took as an associate. So, don't withhold that from yourself because you've structured your debt on short terms and you don't allow yourself to make profit. Like, think about making money now that you can invest at 5 or 6%. Interest rates are low that if you can get more of your money over time and protect yourself. Okay, the headaches of the project, that's where we come in to help you build a team. Refinancing current debt can help make things easier. And then if you're looking at a project, you can get the money first before you go through all the work and then realize you can't finance it, you can't afford it. You can look at a structure on the front end. So if you look at your big project, if you have, say you wanted to expand and add square footage, for every square foot, you usually see $100 a square foot for renovations on a veterinary hospital. That's for if you have the walls already up and you just want to do the interior. And you can see it lower, you can see it higher, but the reason it's around 100 is because the flooring is more expensive for a veterinary hospital. You want to have the right flooring, or else, one, you end up replacing it in 5 years, but urine gets in the corners, so it smells, and there's numerous issues. The HVAC as well is always what drives the cost up. So like I said, we've seen clinics get it done for 70 or 75. We've seen some do it for 150, but $100 for renovations. If you're doing ground up construction, so you need to add to the footprint, we usually see roughly $150 to $200 a square foot when you're adding to the footprint of the building. So you can use that for, again, for the purposes of this, if you're adding 500 square feet or whatever it may be, think of $100 a square foot to add on to that. $50,000 roughly. Equipment, same thing. So you can start to add these numbers together. So if you had $100,000 for construction, for renovation and everything that goes through, then you had $100,000 in equipment. So you wanted to go digital, you wanted to get new practice management software, and you wanted to add a therapy laser, right? So 3 key pieces of equipment that people are talking about. And then you had another, say, $50,000 that would be a split from architect fees, redoing your website, and doing a marketing campaign to announce your expansion. So you're borrowing $250,000 total. your total monthly payment would just be $1,400, $350. So 1,007, yeah, 1,750. So that's for like the bigger projects. So you start to look at, okay, can I afford what's $1,750 a month going to do to my cash flow, right? And am I at the point where my incremental, I'll grow revenue to the point where that $1,750 will be covered and then some. So that's how you can start to see, all right, if we expand, is it worth it? Can we afford it? Can we make it cash flow from day one? Again, it's, you can always pay extra, but when you reinvest, you want to make sure to protect yourself against uncertainties and make sure that you're in the strongest cash flow position. And this is if you have to refinance real estate. This is a conservative, relatively high interest rate on what, if you refinance on 25 years, what your cash flow would be. So that's on a larger scale for big projects. The other way you can do it is do an equipment loan versus an equipment lease. Lease is if you do a 5-year lease, just like if you lease a car, you have to pay 5 years of interest, right? If you want to turn the car in early, it doesn't matter. You're paying the 5 years of the lease. It's the same thing on equipment. So sometimes equipment gets outdated, sometimes you want to upgrade, and as the owner, you get hit as the penalties because you have to pay all the interest for the 5 years. So if you get a loan, you can take a 5 or 7-year loan, and you can always pay extra, and then if you ever have to pay it off, all that's due is the balance. So you're not going to get hit with that unpaid interest penalty. So we've had doctors that are thinking about putting money down or doing different things like that, and they just take a 5 or 7-year term instead. It gives them the monthly payment they're comfortable with. And that 20 grand you're going to put down, you could put it down 5 grand every quarter, or just to protect yourself against, hey, I put 20 grand down on this new piece of equipment, and then we had a crappy winter, and now I have a headache because I would have had that 20 grand cash, but I just spent on my down payment on a digital X-ray. So we say is keep the cash and have the flexibility to apply it to the loan and pay it off early. So same thing. But, okay, so probably 10 or 15 minutes. There's we do a quick thing on just like brainstorming an idea to affect profit. There's a quick slide on employee training, or there is something on what else is there? The battery's getting low. Love that picture. Time management, maybe. Does have a preference on one? I don't know how much time we have. Have you guys just saw all of them?
Time management.
Time management. And so this is stuff that I do not pretend to live in the medical world of a veterinarian, I also haven't ran a hospital, so I can't sit and say, hey, I've experienced everything and I know what you guys are going through on a daily basis. These are just some things that help myself, and they've worked for some other small businesses I've worked with that I figure to pass them along, and if they make sense, they make sense. If not, hopefully no one's going to get offended. But what are the time management? So, and this, I actually stole a lot of this from a book I was reading. This is the plan stuff. All right, so this used to be my time management system. I'm sure a lot of people feel like this sometimes. There's a couple things that, and I stole this, there's a book called The Ultimate Sales Machine, and ultimately, you guys obviously have a lot of sales involved in your business as well, although the medical skill obviously drives it, but the receptionist, the techs, I would say it's more about client education and then allowing them to select the service. But I felt like these principles apply to anyone that's owns a small business or is out on an island, like doing a sales type of job or anything from that standpoint. So first thing is touch it once. So you get 100 emails a day, or however many emails you get a day, and all these different tasks. If you can't sit and do it from start to finish, don't start it, right? I mean, it's common, everybody hears don't do a million different things at once, but you really have to, and you have to be so disciplined with this. You can't start stuff you can't finish. You'll waste so much time doing half the tasks. Make lists. This is something I started doing is, you can't, most people have to-do lists, I'm assuming to some capacity. However, limit it to the 6 most important things each day that you want to do. So wake up, and if you have 50 things on your to-do list, if you have a running to-do list of maybe call this person, call that person, but you probably have 6 tasks. And for a doctor, one of those would be patient visits, right? You can't avoid that. That's something you have to do. It's scheduled in, so you have to add it to your list. But maybe there's a client you have to call back that you're supposed to get to yesterday that's on there. Maybe it's a staff meeting. Maybe it's talk to a certain staff member about an issue that you haven't been able to. Maybe it's call a vendor about something, and limit it to 6. And then plan an amount of time for each task. So if you have patient visits for 4 hours of the day, then that's, number 1 on your list is probably patient visits, and you're going to put 4 hours next to it. Then forecast out your day. Like, when you're in patient visits and when you have breaks. So try and figure out, all right, if I don't have appointments from 8 to 10, what can I get done at that point? And then obviously prioritizing from there. So this sounds like a lot, but when you get up and you look at your calendar for the day, it'll take you 5 minutes. Just say, all right, here are the things I have to do. You put them on the list, and then you say, all right, this will take 4 hours for patient visits. This task will take 15 minutes, 30 minutes. You should end up right around 6.5 hours. Should be all of your 6 critical tasks. And then after that, that's all the filler time, right? The, hey, you got a minute? Those meetings, talking about, callbacks, small things, quick emails, stuff you have to do. And the other thing is, will it hurt for me to throw this away? Everybody has piles of stuff that you never see again, or emails and things like that. Like, you'd be amazed. Like, if I throw this away, like, someone on your staff probably has the email. Someone could probably resend it. You could call someone. Like, there's very few things that you have to keep. So I think throwing away will eliminate a lot of that. Feels good too. You start shredding stuff, man. Get it off the desk. So this is the other thing. So regular training, I think, is something that it's hard to keep up with. So think about all these questions. All employees perform each aspect of their job with a high degree of excellence and consistency. Results are somewhat predictable because training and skills are consistent. So if your client comes in with a problem, can you predict what type of experience they're going to have? Or does it depend on if they meet with you or if they meet with the front desk person? You know what I mean? Are they going to get a different experience depending on who they catch on that day? Each supervisor would give a similar answer for each question or problem. So if you have office managers and people that report head techs, things like that, are they going to get the same answer from the head tech that they would from the doctor? Each employee would give a similar answer for each question or problem. Same thing. Customer service. Does it depend on your policy, or does it depend on who they get on the phone? Client treatment is similar no matter who the client deals with in our hospital. Goes back to that same thing. All staff members know what is considered good performance or attitude. If the answer is false to any of these, then that's an opportunity to improve by instituting some regular training. And it's not easy, that's where you got to have, the lunch meeting on Friday for an hour, or maybe the clinic's closed for 30 or 45 minutes. But when you go through this training, you can create, assign someone to take notes or to organize what the training is about on a worksheet. You slowly start saving these things, all of a sudden you have an employee manual. So when you hire someone new, it's okay, this is what we're about. And it's easy to be consistent because you've had, each training session, you put it on a piece of paper about what you talked about, and what the protocol is, and what the expectations are. And it can be transferred to. So this goes different training techniques, but like I said, a lot of it's pretty straightforward. My favorite are workshops. So a lot of doctors like where to start. My first thing would say, hold a workshop, and the first question on that workshop is, can everyone come up with 3 ways you think this hospital could be better? And give them 5 minutes to think and write something down. And go around and come up with questions. And that's your starting point. That's your list of items. And then your next workshop, if you do them once a month or every 2 weeks, your staff, you may be surprised by what the receptionist, they may have something that's, when a customer calls and they need X, I don't know where to get the answer because so-and-so's busy and you may not be here, you may be dealing with someone else. So, you know what I mean? You may be shocked, but that generates your list. There's an easy way to figure out where you could improve your hospital. So And then each next workshop is, all right, hey, this week we're going to tackle this. And you assign and delegate some responsibilities. Hey, can you work on this, and everybody brings it together. And then that's where you have the training sessions on that. So, all right. I think that's all. I think we'll get you on to your next group. Sorry, any questions? I know I flew through a lot of different stuff and kind of quick. And I can talk more about the bank stuff. I just find it sometimes probably as dry as you do. Unless like you have a need right away. It's not always.
What are the, as far as equipment, what are the value-added services you're seeing? I saw the laser, but our clinic.
Like as far as what do I see clinics buying?
Yes.
To add, lasers are very popular. I know the dental side, that sounds kind of
digital.
Yeah. Here's the thing with digital, and
we're old school on digital.
no one from IDEX is around here, right? So it's definitely efficient.
Yeah.
Right. It's extremely efficient, but CR and DR, a lot of it depends on integration and how many clients you're seeing today. I mean, you really got to be cranking sometimes to justify it, depending on how busy the clinic is. So I don't know if the X-ray, I don't know if is a practice grower unless you're turning X-rays away because it's taking too long, or you're not taking X-rays because they're too long to process it and you need to perform surgery or whatever it may be. But it definitely creates efficiencies. I think of practice growers are things that you can invoice clients for in addition to what you're currently doing. So if you implement wellness plans and have blood analyzers in-house, that's been popular. Lasers, dental, I'm trying to think of what else I've seen.
I had a question about those things. A lot of the companies like, Webster and Butler, whatever, IDEX, they offer those upgrades, so to speak, the digital x-rays and things, and they offer payment plans and no interest, and so why would somebody go out to a bank and get, there must be some benefit of going out and getting a loan for them independently.
Well, a lot of it, they have some unique rebate programs that are packaged and you have to do them a certain way to take advantage of that. And in scenarios where, they give you equipment and they're giving you a rebate and it's like a net zero, you're not making a payment, just not a lot of reason not to do that. But, the one thing that I think a loan presents or offers that a lease or some of that package financing does not is the flexibility of that. They're making your payment, right? But what if you wanted to pay extra on that loan? So say you had a 5-year rebate agreement and you had 5 years worth of payments, but every quarter you put an extra $1,000 on it or whatever it may be, and you paid it off 4 years early. Well, then you'd have a year of rebates where you didn't have a loan payment, so it would just go in your account. You could use IDEX points for buying goods or supplies or putting it towards your next equipment purchase. So I think it just presents more flexibility. But like I said, in cases where it's like, yeah, we're giving you the equipment and we're going to pay for it, just package it this way, it's not really a good reason not to do it that way. And if you get zero interest, same thing. Like you'll hear people do promotional 24 months, zero interest, or different things like that. Those are deals that you kind of have to take.
Well, we had IDEX come in and offer us digital x-ray, and it was supposedly free. It sounded too good to be true, but then there was a deal where we had to promise them a certain amount of lab work.
Right. And if we fell short of that, then there were consequences.
Yeah, pretty significant.
You have to do the reference labs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's always like a catch
Yeah.
at the end, and it's usually a pretty...
In-house, yeah. So what, and the way we could maybe fit is that if they're willing to set, because I know a lot of the times they're in contracts, I don't want to speak out of line with what their packages are. But if you bought the equipment on a loan and IDEX was giving you a rebate and they just put it into your account, your points bank, and you could put it towards whatever reference lab or wherever it may be. But yeah, you'd want to plan for you'd have to plan for the loan payment. It wouldn't be paid off. Because yeah, I gotta be honest, there's a lot of moving parts with their agreements depending on if it's an IPA deal or a reference lab and how much volume you're doing, and there's different metrics they use. So yeah, I hate to speak out of turn in terms of how that's.
So are more of the loans that you're doing now for like these equipment that will build the base, or are you doing more in terms of the remodeling within the hospital or the marketing budgets or the non-tangible good stuff that build the Well, I guess the floors are good. The
Yeah,
other
no,
stuff.
it depends on the clinic. I'd say I'm seeing a fair amount of both. A lot of doctors, I think, have put their plans on hold for the last 24 months because of the economy, and there's a lot more confidence recently. And so if they had
So
that,
this week.
if they had that 1,200 square foot addition on the back burner, they're finally starting to maybe look to do that. I've had a lot of conversations with doctors about that. But I think we would do more kind of bundle loans if people knew they were available. So I think the scenario of, it's always like, well, if I want this equipment, I have to have a lease for this equipment. And then if I want to do this, I have to do a lease for this. So you end up with 3 or 4 different monthly payments. Each one's around $1,000 or $800. And all of a sudden you feel like you're cash strapped. Where in reality, we could do the x-ray, the software, everything on one loan, put it on 7 years or 10 years or 5 years, but you can find a monthly payment you're comfortable with, and you can always pay extra. But, so that's where I think like a lot of stuff says, well, we'll do this year, and we got to wait a year to do this. Or, we'll do this now, and then part of this, and everything ends up 3 years apart, and then you end up with, by the time the stuff you bought 3 years ago, it's outdated, you get the new piece, where if you could do it all at once, and then just kind of pay it off, it would make a lot more sense and make it more tangible. Kind of danced around your question. I'd say it's 50-50. Compared to just like straight, hey, I'm buying a digital x-ray, compared to I'm renovating, doing some small facelifting, things like that.
Or setting up the dental suite or whatever.
Yeah, right, like we need new cabinetry, we need to add a wall because we need to transform it and run some plumbing and things like that. Yeah.